Well, a long time ago, I started hunting because there were so many deer. They were eating and trampling our crops, and I figured I'm going to feed them, they're going to feed me. And we'd pick the sheds out of the fields, and I was always fascinated by them, so I would do something with them, whether I do knife handles or tool handles or kitchen utensil handles, because they were really neat. And I don't know, I was always loved them. So I made a lot of things with them. And occasionally you would get a big deer. And people would say, how much did it score? So you would take it in and you would get it scored. And it was subject to deductions. So did you get a big deer? Yeah, but man, had a lot of extra points and it got deducted, so didn't really score that good, but it was a really nice deer. And nobody had an answer why there was deductions. It was in an effort to make the deer perfect. Well, it's not a perfect world. And throughout the years, I would get animals scored and I just say, holy smokes, what the heck is going on? Simply because of the deductions. And also with a quarter-inch tape, it kind of intrigued me how they could score. Now, I did a lot of hunting in the winter, and as you can see, and I took my camo seriously. But in the winter, you can follow their tracks. Now, we can't bait up here, so it makes it challenging. You got to follow their tracks, make sure you had the wind right and that sort of thing. But I'm looking at these pictures, and pretty much every deer has got deductions. And so, over the years, I decided to do something about it. And I invented C-tags. And you've seen on this channel the perfect score and how C-tags works, because even this deer, as beautiful it is, that point above my hand is deducted. So whether it's big or little, even or not, there's deductions. If one point's longer than the other, it's deducted, which is really sad. But even this deer, as clean as it looks, look at it, it's a nice clean 4x4, but look at the bases. It loses almost 13 inches of deductions because of these beautiful points that it grew on the bases. And that's just the way it is, but I don't agree with it. So I invented C-tags to try get a clearer idea of how much antler the animal grew. Now you take a look at this elk. It's a beautiful elk, but that mass is not scored. It's scored at the smallest circumference for mass. Now if you take a look at my elk, it's very typical. And with 18-inch thirds, 25-inch daggers, 56-inch main beams, it scores very well under the current systems. But under the current system, I'm tied with 7 other elk. Now, I've harvested elk with lots of non-typical points, and if it's a typical elk, you lose them, which is too bad, because even this elk, beautiful, it's got a nice little kicker on it, but you lose that kicker. And that's just the way the current systems are. There's so many ties and that sort of thing. And nobody really can explain why so many ties. I always get whatever, it is what it is. Well, it doesn't have to be, because they're never the same. I mean, if you look at my elk, even though the other elk scored the same, it had way more mass and that sort of thing. So in an effort to try give some clarity to it, I invented C-tags. Over the years, I've harvested a lot of beautiful whitetails, and these 3 beauties all score the same, 144 6/8 under the current scoring systems. So I scored them using C-tags, and there's a big difference. One of them, the biggest, scores 140 mils bigger. So they're not ties, and they don't look the same. But under scoring them using science and the C-tag system, you can see they give credit where credit is due. Now, nowadays, during competitions, whether it's the Olympics or Major League Sports, they use every bit of science and technology and resource in the interest of fairness to determine a winner and a loser. We all know there are way too many ties in the record books, and it doesn't have to be. If the current systems incorporated C-tags under their umbrella of scoring so that they would never have a tie, if a tie showed up, they would simply use the C-tag systems to determine the winner, and there'd be no ties, which is the way it should be in a perfect world. Now, I'm hoping the younger generation of true sportsmen endorse this system and encourage the current systems to use it to avoid the ties. Anyway, the rest of this video is how I do C-tags. I hope you enjoy it. Here it is now. Now, C-tags is a scoring system I invented a long time ago to determine ties, because there are so many ties in the current systems. And so here's how I do it. You just get an ordinary garbage can, and all of a sudden you're going to transform it into a positive displacement tank. Because in my system, you do the volume of the antlers and the height and the width. Because when you see an animal in the field, you say, look how high it was, look how wide it was, look how thick it was. So you take an ordinary garbage can, and you're going to use this fitting. And I'm just going to show you how to make one of these because they're pretty handy. I do all my antlers with it because it gives a more clear representative of actually how much antler the animal grew. Now, this is what it looks like inside. You're just going to fill this thing with water. It's going to drain out. You attach the hose out and do it so it doesn't leak. And now all of a sudden, you got a positive displacement tank out of an ordinary garbage can. And what I do is I use a measuring cup underneath with the hose. I fill it full of water. Okay, there's a measuring cup. I fill it till it quits dripping, and then the level is right. I put my drying rack on top. And what I'll do with the drying rack is I've got to attach the antlers on there with tie wire and put them in so that just the burr is at the water level, and just let it drip and make sure it's completely drained, and because you want to get the volume. So you immerse each antler to the burr because you want to get everything. And I just use tie wire again, and I drop it into the positive displacement tank. And now you want every little piece to measure every bit of volume. So you want it right to the burr. And there's what it looks like when it's actually at the volume on the top of the water. And now that antler will displace all the water that the volume of that antler has, and you can see how it starts dripping, and then just go have a coffee. Now, when you do both sides, left and right, you'll find they almost displace the same amount of volume, because most animals grow the same amount of antler on both sides. They just don't grow it in the right places. The current systems really deduct that, which is too bad, because in this case, we take the total volume, and you need to make a positive displacement tank, and you'll see it drips. And when it's finished dripping, you measure it, and it's measured in millimeters because my measurement system uses millionths because we don't want ties. Now the garbage can go back to its normal duties. Now the other thing we do is we measure how high it is. And now you take the highest measurement you can find from the center of the skull cap to the highest point. Then you do the widths, and same thing, you do it as wide as you can. It's measured in millimeters. I also record the inches. And now you've got the total width, you've got the total height, okay, and you've got the total volume, each antler displaced. And then you count the number of points. Now, it doesn't matter if you see a point, it is a point. Now, this point is actually deducted under the other systems, which is too bad. Now, you can see it had 9 points. Its height was 397 millimeters, and it was 15 5/8 inches high. It was 496 millimeters wide, or 19 6/8 of an inch. 620 milliliters on the right, 621 millimeters on the left, and it scored 2,134 mils of antler under the C-tag system. So it's called Cote's Total Antler Growth System, and it gives you a clear volume with no deductions of how much actual antler each animal grew, how many points it had, and that sort of thing. And then I put it on a tag. Now, anybody can score it, but I officially do them, and this is my brand. I take a piece of leather, I cut a hole in it, okay, I put a strap. It's very, very simple. Now, anybody, again, if you want to build one of those tanks, that's awesome. But for it to be officially to go into the record book, it has to have a tag like this. And what I write on the back of the tag is the year I got it. You can see I measure even the score, Henry Kelty score, the height it was in inches, the width it was in inches. It was a 9-point, and C-tags, it was 2,134 mils of antler. Now, you can see there's the tag there. I'll turn it over, and it's a 9-point. You can see how high it was, how wide it was, right on the front of the tag. So it was a 9 by 2134 under the T-tag system, and I sign it, and it goes in the record book. Now, I'll take right over wrong any day, quality over quantity. That's just the way I am. Thanks for watching. Please donate to cancer. See you in the next video.